In this video, we're going to be reacting to the face-to-face between Max Holloway and Ilia Topuria. Yes guys, welcome back to Fight Energy. I am going to a wedding this weekend, but I had to get this video out before I left. So this is effectively my live reaction to the face-to-face. I've seen a couple of highlights on Twitter, but we're going to be looking at about 4 or 5 clips today. It's so great seeing that the UFC and ESPN have done this type of content. It's a Zoom call. It's such low production, but you can see how much the fans want it just by the views that we've seen already. And it's so much more than the high production advertisements, promotions for their events. People want to see this kind of conflict between fighters. This is the stuff that sells. This is the stuff that actually makes superstars of the fighters. And in a time where we are lacking that superstar power, I mentioned it in the last Alex Pereira video, this is the best kind of content we could possibly have. I do have a sneaking suspicion that a certain MMA guru may have had something to do with the UFC pushing this kind of content, but I really hope that we see more of it. But before we get into the clips themselves, I do want to talk about this fight, because I think other than Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall, this is probably the best fight that the UFC could make right now. Taking a look at where both fighters are in their career, it's the perfect time to make it. Max Holloway, before UFC 300, before that epic finish against Justin Gaethje, he was at something of a crossroads in his career. People forget that just because of how spectacular UFC 300 was. But Max Holloway had lost 3 times to Volkanovski. He was beating all of Volkanovski's potential challengers, and he was a bit of a nomad in the featherweight division. But then that epic knockout against Justin Gaethje has just propelled him to being an even bigger star, and it makes this fight even better. And then you've got Ilia Topuria, the current champion, the guy who beat arguably the greatest featherweight of all time in Volkanovski, and who's just been steamrolling people. He seems to have it all. He's on his own meteoric rise. He's a Spanish, Georgian, so the European markets really get behind him. And I truly believe that it's the perfect time to make this fight. A lot of the time in the fight game, timing is key. We've seen it in boxing where greats leave it too late to fight each other. The UFC, thankfully, all being under one banner, has its negatives, but for the positives, it is this. You do, more often than not, see the fights that you want to see, other than Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall, apparently. But anyway, let's get into the clips. The first one we're going to look at is talking about respect between the two fighters. And it's a theme that we see quite a lot in this face-to-face, is the theme of the passing of the guard. Max Holloway is being painted by Topuria as an older fighter, which I guess he is, with a lot more miles on the clock, and Topuria's the new generation coming through. But anyway, let's take a look at the first clip.
He's been a fan for many years, and
Yeah, to be honest, I've been a fan from many years. To be honest, yeah, I've been a fan.
it's a
I
big
followed
team,
your
man.
entire career since I started to doing my first steps in MMA, and yeah, you've been a great example for the new generation. But now it's my time to be that example for the new generation. So
We need to
yes, I've
find
been
out.
a big fan of you.
I love that. And it's Topuria. He's acknowledging straight away that he is a fan of Max Holloway. Who's not a fan of Max Holloway? He's probably the most popular fighter in the UFC. But at the same time, he has to get that in at the end. That yes, whilst he did look up to him as he was going through the ranks, it's one of those, your idols become your rivals, that kind of cliche. But Ilia Topuria is subtly getting in there that, look, now it's his time. But I wouldn't be so sure about that, because in the lightweight division especially, we did see that over the last couple of years. The UFC seemed to be attempting to filter out the previous generation. You had fighters like Fiziev fighting Gaethje, Benoit Saint-Denis fighting Dustin Poirier. There's a couple of others that I can't think of off the top of my head. But you had these kind of fights happen, and the old guard still won. So even though Topuria seems so confident, and he is an exceptional fighter, I really want to make that clear, you can never necessarily write off the guy who has that experience. That is often invaluable.
Big fan of you. Yeah.
Yeah, we get to find out October 26th, buddy.
Find out October 26th. If we were to play a drinking game, drink every time Max Holloway says October 26th, I don't think I'd make it to the end of this video. Holloway does this quite a lot of the time. He gets sort of sayings. I think on Rogan, that time he was saying, "It is what it is." I think that was after the Dustin Poirier loss, if I remember correctly. But Holloway does this. He gets phrases in his head and just repeats them. But hey, you know, let's just say that he's super zoned in on the fight itself. That's got all his attention. Let's forgive him for that one.
Max, what do you think of that when he admits that he was a fan of you
I know he's a
in your
fan. He
fight?
didn't have to admit. He didn't have to admit it. He's a big fan, and everybody knows it. That's why he
Of
stalks me on
course,
Twitter. He stalks me on
I have been
Instagram.
a
Yeah,
big
he's
fan.
a fan.
I can't say the opposite. I've been a huge fan of you. I followed your entire career as a fan. You've been a great father, of course. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm not
trained
gonna say
together, becoming
the
rivals,
opposite.
I guess. I was in
But
his
after,
position against Jose Aldo. Now we're here. So
Okay, so there's a couple of things there. Firstly, fair play to the respect that is shown in this clip. I like this head-to-head, this face-to-face, because it is exactly what a face-to-face should be. Rather than going after families and making it personal like we have seen before certain fighters do, naming no names, Colby Covington, we have seen certain fighters do this before. In this, they're going at each other, but it's more about the fight itself. They're not going after personal stuff, and I do like that. But note what Max Holloway just said. I was you when I fought Jose Aldo. Max Holloway's wins against Jose Aldo were amazing. Jose Aldo was the best featherweight to ever do it at that time. He might still be. You can either argue him or Volkanovski. And Holloway stopped him twice. They were fantastic fights. Watch them back if you've not already. However, they were 7 years ago, and that has to be taken into consideration. Holloway has so many miles on the clock.
Aldo, now we're
after
here. So we
October
get to find out.
26th, after the October 26th, maybe you will become my fan. Maybe you will start learning from me.
Oh, yeah.
Max,
And maybe you'll become my fan. Ilia Topuria is really leaning into this because he knows that the people love Max Holloway. So what's the point in trying to get people to love him as well? He may as well lean into the Floyd Mayweather, people watching him to get knocked out. Ilia Topuria has a huge fan base across Europe. People respect him in the UFC because he's such an exciting fighter. But when you're fighting Max Holloway, when realistically the fans are going to be against you, why not lean into it? It's only going to sell the fight more. Next up, we're going to look at a clip which I did see on Twitter, I must admit. It's where Ilia Topuria challenges Max Holloway to stand and trade with him, just like he did against Justin Gaethje, but rather than the last 10 seconds, to do it in the first 10 seconds.
what do you think of his belt on his shoulder right now?
He bought it for what? $600, $700, brother. That was a waste of money.
Ilia, why did you purchase a BMF belt?
Mm, because I want it.
Sound like a spoiled child.
Blah, 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 blah.
Since you're holding that belt, Ilia, what did you think of Max's fight against Justin Gaethje in April?
Yeah, he don't have to answer that. Everybody saw the video already. We saw the video. Run the clip. Run the clip.
Okay, this is interesting. This is where Max Holloway is referring to that clip that did the rounds. I'm not sure if you remember it, where Ilia Topuria apparently looked quite shook, looked quite nervous, looked shocked after seeing Max Holloway finishing Justin Gaethje. Look, that reaction was everyone's reaction at the time, but of course, being a potential future opponent of Max Holloway's, maybe it wasn't the best look. Maybe it gave Max confidence that Ilia doesn't want the fight. But you know what? Max Holloway's obviously going to double down on this because it's one of very few things you can actually say about Ilia Topuria ever looking nervous. He's the fighter who, as you can see in this video, speaking his fourth or fifth language, he uses confidence. He's supremely confident in his own ability. So any little chink in that armour like this, Holloway's going to double down on.
You know, everybody know how he felt about the fight.
Bro, I was so bored watching that fight. The only thing excited about that fight was the last 10 seconds, to be honest. But I didn't see any technique in that fight. I didn't see any strategy. I didn't see any fucking thing. I just saw a bar fight, to be honest.
Okay, so this is the first attempt by Ilia Topuria to try and get under Max's skin, where he knows something about Max. Max is the self-proclaimed best boxer in the UFC. So with that, it's all about technique, isn't it? If you're the best boxer, it means you slip, you move, you've got the best hands, the fastest hands, the more dynamic striking. But Ilia Topuria is effectively saying that that UFC 300 fight was a bar fight. He knows what he's doing. He knows that it's also not true because how many turning side kicks and things like that do you see in bar fights? Maybe in Georgia, I'm not sure. But anyway, Ilia Topuria is really trying to get under Max Holloway's skin here.
It was very spectacular for the fans, but for me as a professional, it was I don't know, not something very impressive, to be honest, because you can impress everyone, but you know the technique behind that knockout, and it was zero. Just an exchange and a bar.
I mean, your face said otherwise, so it is what it is, brother.
I challenge you to have that exchange, but in the first 10 seconds of the fight, and you will see what's going to happen. When you face a fighter like me inside the octagon, who brings that technique and that power, you can't do that. I'm
Well,
going to take your
We're
head
gonna
off
find out.
if
We're
you
gonna
do that.
find out October 26th, right?
Let's find out. And
We're
the
gonna
Good to see October 26th getting another mention there. But this is really good to see. Ilia Topuria mentions the word professional a lot. I'm a professional fighter. You're not going to see me getting into wild exchanges like that. I feel like, again, he's trying to push that narrative of the up-and-coming MMA fighter, not being like the old-school veterans who are just wild and reckless. He's a professional fighter. He does things properly. He relies on technique, mixing up the martial arts. However, he goes on to then completely contradict that by saying, look, let's just stand and exchange in the first 10 seconds. I don't care how much technique you claim to have there. If you are just going to get into a firefight in the first 10 seconds, even with technique, you're leaving yourself vulnerable, leaving yourself open. That's not the approach of a professional fighter. So obviously Topuria wants to sell this to the fans. Max Holloway, does he agree to the challenge? Let's have a look.
And the
We're gonna
first 10
find out.
seconds.
We're gonna find
First
out.
10 seconds.
First 10 seconds. You'd love that. You get tired every time. Relax.
I get tired. I
Calm
get
down,
tired.
brother. Calm
I
down.
get tired of knocking people
2
out.
weeks. We got 2 more weeks.
I get tired of knocking
Calm
people
down,
out,
brother.
submit people.
Calm down.
Firstly, that was a brilliant comeback by Ilia Topuria. Max Holloway saying he gets tired. Ilia Topuria saying, I get tired of knocking people out. But is there any truth in Holloway's claim that Topuria does get tired? Probably not. Obviously, he does finish people a lot, which is a credit to him, but also might suggest that your cardio doesn't get tested necessarily. But there is that 5-round 50-42 against Josh Emmett, where he did mix in the takedowns and finished very strong. I think the output did decline in the 5th round, but he already knew that he was up. Why take unnecessary risks? So realistically, I don't think you can claim that Topuria gets tired, but one thing we know for sure is that Max Holloway does not get tired. Okay, so we are quickly going through these clips. The next one is a bit more menacing, a bit more sinister from both of them. Let's take a look.
It's just talking until October 26th. The cage door is closing. May the better man win.
And no
No,
one's gonna save you once that cage gonna be closed, my friend.
No one's gonna save you
one.
too, buddy.
No
No one's gonna be in there. Actually, there
I
is.
will be the
The
first
ref.
one.
The
Who's gonna
referee is
take
gonna
it?
save you, buddy.
You
The ref
will
is in
be
there to save
lights
you,
out
buddy.
for the first time. Trust me,
ref
and
is in
you
there
will
to
become
save
an instant fan. An instant.
This is what we have been missing in the UFC. How many fights over the last couple of years would we have loved to see this kind of face-to-face? Again, it's such low production. It's a Zoom call where they can't really talk over each other because then no one can hear anything. But it's still so good to see two fighters just going at each other. There's not too much depth in this clip. Obviously, they're just saying that no one's going to save you. The ref will save you. All that kind of stuff, which is fine. But it does build up the fight. It sells the fight. We want the fighters interacting with each other, talking to each other before the fight. Because you know when that cage door does get locked, when Bruce Buffer does make the announcements, there is that extra edge when you know there's a bit more needle, a bit more personal beef between the fighters. Love it or hate it, it sells. It's what we need to see more of. And Topuria makes the claim that so many fighters already have that they're going to be the fighter to crack that granite chin of Max Holloway. If anyone's going to do it, it probably will be Ilia Topuria because he hits like a train. But still, Max has shown such an iron chin. Justin Gaethje, a weight division above, he did knock him down, didn't he? But they didn't officially count it. He did get knocked down, a flash knockdown, but we've not seen him really hurt. We've not seen him really stumbled. Could Ilia Topuria be the man to do it?
Fan. And you already know how it feels when you have to bounce back. You already have a 7 professional defeat. I had 0. So you're going to do it once again really well. I don't have any doubts about that. You are a great example of that. And you have to stay like that.
I took a lot of people's donuts, bro. I hope you like churros.
So Ilia Topuria referring to the 7 career losses that Max Holloway has already had. And this is one example, and we've seen a couple already, where Ilia is getting across the idea that, look, Max, you don't really have that much to lose. Maybe trying to take the pressure off him a little bit, a few mind games there. But really, this is a good time to take a look at what both fighters do have to lose. As we said at the start of the video, Max Holloway's crossroads before the Justin Gaethje fight, and then that win just gave him so many options. It gave him the Conor McGregor BMF fight. It gave him a lightweight potential campaign. It's given him this title shot, let's face it. It came off the back of that win. However, if Holloway does lose this fight, it does kind of get rid of that featherweight option, I feel. I feel like a lightweight campaign would definitely still be on the cards. A rematch with Conor McGregor would be there. But I think if Holloway loses this, coming off the 3 Volkanovski losses as well, I think his time at featherweight effectively has to be done. With Ilia Topuria, he's still so young, but he just beat Volkanovski, who, alongside Jose Aldo, could be considered the greatest featherweight of all time. If he then beats Max Holloway, who's definitely in that conversation as well, that gives Ilia Topuria's last 2 wins over Volkanovski and Max Holloway. I mean, there's probably not a better 2 opponents back-to-back out there in the UFC at the moment. So these are potential legacy fights already for Ilia Topuria so early on in his title reign. There's so much at stake in this fight for both of these fighters, which is why I think is so many people looking forward to it and why they had to do this face-to-face. And that clip leads perfectly into this one, where Topuria talks about beating Volkanovski and that Holloway's facing the same outcome.
Saying no. You
How?
asked many times about different fighters. You said to the UFC, I want to fight with Mike Chandler. I want to fight with Carl
I
McChicken.
never ever
wanna
asked to fight Michael
with
Chandler.
this
Why
and
would I
that,
fight him? Why would I ask to fight him?
Everyone.
Why
but
would I
not
ask to
me.
fight him? Come on.
What?
You are the first guy I asked for. I want Ilia I want the easiest fight.
Yeah,
I want Ilia Topuria. That's what I said.
Yeah. The easiest fight. Whoa.
I know that he's smiling, but Topuria didn't like that. And you can tell Holloway's quite satisfied with that statement, that Topuria is the easiest fighter. No one in the world believes that. Everyone knows that Topuria is a wrecking ball, a technical wrecking ball. But still, I feel like Holloway got one off there, and Topuria's undoubtedly going to say something back.
Easiest fight. You're going to realize.
You're going to find out. Bro.
October 26th. You're going to find out. October 26th.
Yeah.
I'll send you back to Hawaii.
With a belt. 12 pounds heavier.
Also, of course, we'll never really know if Holloway didn't want the Topuria fight, if he was trying to avoid it. But what we do know is that Max Holloway is the guy who stepped in on just a few days' notice to fight Khabib. This isn't the guy, at least he wasn't back then, the guy who'd be avoiding fights. At the same time, based on what we just said about where they both are in their respective careers, Max Holloway knows that if he does lose this fight, his time at featherweight could well be over. So he's a very different fighter now. He's in a different position, but I can't really see him avoiding fights. He's just not that type of fighter.
Belt. 12 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy.
I already opened a home for all people. Volk already has his room. I have another one for you. So I'm going to put you right there after October 26th.
October 26th again. But again, this is the narrative that we spoke about at the start, that Holloway's somehow past his prime, which you can look at this in 2 ways. He's in his prime in terms of his age, his last win at lightweight, looking so good against someone who was, he was an underdog in that fight, and Justin Gaethje's such a banger. Just to completely pick him apart and to finish him in the way that he did. Holloway is arguably in his prime. However, the miles on the clock do not argue. He's been in so many wars, both intentionally, leaving his chin out there, getting Brian Ortega to hit him, and unintentionally, like the 3rd fight with Volk. Topuria is undoubtedly the fresher fighter. He got the head kick from Jai Herbert, but really he's not been in as many wars as Holloway, and he's younger. So he is the younger fighter coming through. But to say Holloway is past his prime, is he just trying to get in his head, saying about the old people's home and things like that? Yes, definitely. That's what they try and do at these face-to-faces. But I just can't really see this bothering Holloway. I think Holloway does have miles on the clock, but he's still looking fantastic. Right, before we get on to the last clip about who's the best boxer, I'm going to ask you guys to subscribe, drop this video a like. I will be doing a full breakdown / prediction video in the probably next week, so make sure you watch out for that. But anyway, let's get on to this last clip about who is the better boxer.
Max has said he's the best boxer in the UFC. What do you think of that?
Bro, that's a shame. Don't say that again. I recommend don't say that again.
Prove me wrong.
Why
He
not?
is the best
You're
boxer
wrong.
in the UFC. Not head movement, not knockout power, not technique. He's just, listen. And I saw him working with the
No head movement, no technique, no knockout power. Okay, how much truth is there to that? No head movement. Holloway has shown head movement in the past, the Calvin Kattar fight, but he does generally hold his head very high and pretty much central. No technique is just flat out not true. He's an extremely technical striker, as we've seen him pick apart so many good fighters in the past. No knockout power. At lightweight, he definitely has knockout power, as we just saw. In featherweight, he's not shown that so much. He's been more of a volume fighter, but who knows? He's now shown that he can mix it up.
with the backs. Bro, what the fuck is this? Don't do that. Don't
Brother,
do
you're
that.
doing the same exact drill on top of your one bag. What are you talking about? Same exact drill. Same exact drill. What are you talking? And you know it. You're laughing because you know it.
Give me Joe.
What are you talking about?
I don't fucking know who's Joe. Who's Joe?
What? What?
Okay, so the language barrier coming into it, possibly for the first time this interview, which is very impressive from Ilia Topuria. I think he mistook the word drill for Joe, something like that. But really, this clip is just a bit of an ego battle. They both fancy themselves as boxers, so I don't really read too much into this one. So these are the clips that I picked out from this face-to-face. I've really enjoyed making this video. It's something a bit different. I really hope the UFC do it for more events. We'd love to see it. Even if there is more of a language barrier than we've seen here. It's 2024. We should be able to have workarounds, translators, apps, anything like that that could make it work in real time. It definitely can be done. We need to see more of this. So I hope that everyone as well is commenting on that ESPN video, tweeting, saying we need these for at least every pay-per-view event. It would be amazing. I will be doing a 5 things we learned video for the flyweight main event this weekend, Royval against Tyra. So make sure you look out for that. But anyway, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you guys later.